Hi there, this is attorney Shelly John. I'm popping on video to give you the most current update as to the status of the courts. So I'm recording this on April 3rd, 2020, and this is a status of the local family law courts. I'm going to cover San Bernardino, Riverside, Pomona, LA, and Orange County. And again, this is just family law, but these are the most current updates that I have. So let me share my screen and I'll go through some of those with you. All right, so this is for San Bernardino. The most recent order was issued on April 1st. The courts are closed through April 30th, except that San Bernardino Historic Courthouse is continuing to hear ex partes, that's emergency filings, and domestic violence restraining orders. And there are a few other things like Hague Convention matters. All other family law matters are being continued. So if you have a court date that is set between now and April 30th, you will receive in the mail notification from the court clerk that your hearing date has been continued to a new hearing date down the road. Now, this closure has already been extended once, and it's possible they will extend it again, so it remains to be seen. But for right now, it's the court is closed until April 30th. So what this means is that if you had documents like a response to a divorce or a responsive declaration, if anything like that was due during this period of time, don't worry, you will still be able to file it later. What they're saying is that the period of April 3rd through April 30th is being considered a court holiday, which means that you have those extra days now to file your paperwork. And the reason they're doing that is because right now they are not filing anything except those emergency ex partes and the domestic violence restraining order hearings and filings. So for those, you can go to the courthouse. They will meet you at the front. They will look at your papers, and if it is one of those two things, they will let you in to file. Other than that, you can't file documents right now. But what we are doing is we are still sending documents to the courthouse via mail so that our clients' papers are being kind of set in line. My goal is that if we're filing now, if we're sending it in now, that we will get priority once the court does reopen and they start assigning new court dates. So I don't want to wait until the court reopens and now all of these other people who've been waiting all of this time, everybody descends on the courthouse and I get a hearing date in October or November. So we are still submitting documents right now. They are doing social distancing at the court. So if you have an ex parte or an emergency hearing, they're going to keep you 6 feet apart. Let's see. All right, that's San Bernardino. So the next one is Pomona. So Pomona, LA courts, we have been receiving some different notices, and you'll see here I have different notice dates. Some of the notifications we are receiving are court orders. They are directly from the supervising judges. Other things and notifications we're receiving are just kind of answers to questions that we are receiving from some of the judges. So Pomona, the family law courts are closed through April 16th, except that most of the courthouses are continuing to hear the domestic violence restraining orders and the emergency ex partes. Now, what is an emergency? An emergency is something that is putting somebody's health and safety at risk or in danger. This is not financial issues. The courts are not considering an emergent need for an increase in support or a decrease in support. They are not considering those to be emergency matters. So those are going to have to fall in line with everything else once the court opens back up. Let's see. Now, there are some notifications that are saying that certain pieces of the court are going to be closed through June 22nd, we're being advised that for right now, the only notice we have is that the family law courts are closed through April 16th. But you can watch my page for updates, or you can go on to each county court's website for the most current information. Unlike the other counties, Los Angeles is conducting what we call permanent restraining orders. So if somebody goes in for a temporary emergency restraining order, that generally may, if let's say that gets issued, then what they do is they set another comeback date. And it is on that other comeback date that the requesting party has to prove that this restraining order should stay in effect for 1, 3, 5 years, and that the other party has an opportunity to defend themselves. So that's that second date. It's usually 21 to 25 days after the initial ex parte. Ex parte means emergency hearing. So now what they're doing is, in the other courts, if you have a temporary restraining order in place and you have a hearing date that is set during the period when the court is closed, they are having you, they're adding on, and they're just reissuing those restraining orders. So if you have a temporary restraining order and a hearing date, they are going to continue that hearing date and reissue the temporary restraining order in the meantime. That is for most of the courts except Los Angeles County. So in Los Angeles County, what they're saying is if you have that return date, that hearing is still on calendar. However, they are encouraging counsel, attorneys, and parties to agree to a continuance because they don't want a bunch of people in the courthouse. So they would rather everybody agree, let's continue it out 30 days and come back when it's a little less dangerous to be here at the court. It's just a 30-day continuance. They would reissue the restraining order in that case, but it's not considered a permanent restraining order. It's just an extension of the temporary restraining order. So that's what's happening in Pomona and LA courts. So let me go back to my notes here. You can file papers in Los Angeles County. What they're doing is there's a drop box outside of each of the courthouses, and you can put your papers in there. If you do it before, what's the time? It's either before 4:30. If you put it in the box before 4:30, they are deeming it received and filed that day, which is good because if you are asking for a reduction in child support, let's say, or spousal support because you've lost your job, the court has to, even though your hearing might be out a few months, once your hearing is heard, they can make the order retroactive so that they can do a modification of your support back to when you filed your paperwork. So the nice thing about LA County is you preserve what's called retroactivity by having them file it now. So let's see, they're also saying if you want those papers to be returned to you, then you need to include a self-addressed stamped envelope with your paperwork. They're not accepting cash, so you need to submit a credit card. They have credit card slips outside, or submit a check. They are continuing to process judgments, but it is a bit slow. So if you submitted your judgment, I mean, Pomona can sometimes be a little bit slow on getting judgments processed anyway, but now it's even slower. So just be patient. You're not necessarily going to get a hold of anybody if you call the courthouse because they're very, very busy. And let's see what else. They also want you to know that mediation appointments are being continued. CCRC, Family Court Services mediation appointments are being continued. And Pomona wants everybody to know that if you are filing for an emergency request, an ex parte, an emergency is limited to exigencies, immediate risk, and irreparable harm, for what that's worth. All right, let's move on to Riverside. So Riverside also just gave us an updated announcement. Some of what I'm going to tell you was in that announcement. Some of it is other information that we've received through attorneys who are having conversations or in contact with the supervising judges. They had a big teleconference the other day, so we got some additional information. So in Riverside, the courts are closed through April 17th, except that the Riverside Hall of Justice, Larson in Indio, and Southwest Justice Center are hearing ex parte emergency hearings and the domestic violence restraining order hearings, and then those other few things, the Hague Convention matters. Everything else is being continued. On the call, the judge advised that the courts are going to remain, so I said April 17th. Let me start this over. Okay, so let's move on to Riverside. So Riverside has given a few new announcements. One announcement is saying that the courts, the family law courts, are closed through April 17th. There was another verbal announcement that said that they were going to be closed until April 30th, but that has not been in writing. So right now we're operating on the April 17th date. Just understand that that might be continued. And the reason I keep saying that these courts might extend their closure dates is because Orange County is closed all the way until May 30th. So we'll get to Orange County in a second, but it is very possible they may extend the closures. All right, so what they are still doing, they are still processing domestic violence restraining order requests and ex partes. You can submit those via e-submit. There's a portal you can use to do that, or you can fax the documents to them. They are waiving certain fees, not the filing fee, but the service fee for e-submit. They're waiving that through June 30th. Be sure to keep a hold of your submission receipt if you do it that way. The faster way, though, is to go in person. If you are not immunocompromised or if you are not experiencing symptoms of COVID-19, you can go in person. The clerk will take your paperwork. They'll have you wait for about an hour while the judge reviews your documents. The judge will either deny it or grant your request, and then they'll give you your paperwork back. The courts are only filing some other documents, not a lot. Basically, your judgments, stipulations, requests for orders, none of that is being filed right now. And again, I have reason to believe that if you submit it, though, right now, like let's say you submit something in mail, via mail, that will hopefully be assigned a hearing date or be tended to sooner than somebody who files it on the day that the court reopens. The court hours at the Riverside Hall of Justice are 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And I forgot to tell you, for San Bernardino, they are also unlimited hours. They are 8 or 8:30 to noon. So the courts are not open all day long anymore. If your hearing is being continued in Riverside, again, you will also receive a copy and notification of your new hearing date. And then CCRC, Mediation Family Court Services, hearings are being continued. And just as I had mentioned about San Bernardino, temporary restraining orders are being reissued for 30 days with a new hearing date set. All right, in Orange County, they're the ones who are being closed the longest. They are being closed until June 1st. Oh, I messed up on that. Don't mind this top part, but they are closed until June 1st. To process your domestic violence restraining order or ex parte, you electronically submit it. If it's received before 4 p.m., they will process it that same day. You have to comply with notice requirements. So when you get your papers, or if you have an attorney, make sure that they are following all the local rules. All other documents, excluding these emergency documents, are not going to be processed until June 2nd, or if they close the court even longer than that, it will be processed on those new dates. But they are not being processed right now. They're just sitting in the e-filing queue, as well as those received by mail. All of those are just sitting there, but they will be processed, I believe, again, in order once the court reopens. All non-emergency family law trials, hearings, and proceedings are suspended through June 1st. They're doing something different in Orange County, where what they're doing is they're setting a status conference date with your new request for order date. I don't think it's going to make a big difference in what you see as a litigant or a party, but there are some procedural reasons why they're doing it that way. Okay, this is another important thing with regard to Orange County. In-person supervised visitations are being terminated right now. If the supervisor does FaceTime or video conference visits, then those should still be taking place. But other than that, no in-person supervised visits are taking place right now. So that is a summary of the temporary domestic violence restraining orders that are set for hearing prior to June 1st. They're being automatically extended 25 days. And then when that 25th day comes up, they are likely going to extend it again. Most of you can find information on the court's public website. If you have a paternity case, a parentage case, you weren't married, and you don't have a domestic violence restraining order attached, you might not be able to get information, but most people can get information through their website. And for updated information on all of these courts, you can watch my Facebook page or my Instagram, get on my mailing list, or you can go on to each court's website and you'll receive notification, you'll see the notifications when they're posted. So I will do a video about custody and visitation. There's a lot of parenting issues that are coming up right now for people not knowing how to handle the schedules and not knowing what to do when maybe one parent is working outside the home and the other parent is sheltering in place. So I will do a little video on that. But for right now, I just want to say, if you are needing to file a motion, if you have something that you need the judge to decide, don't wait until the courts reopen to get going on that. Now is the time to be working on getting your papers filed. So even though they're not going to stamp it, they're not going to give you a date, I'm really encouraging people to submit their documents to the court now so that you are in line, and hopefully we'll get a court date, a hearing date sooner than later. And also too, right now, lawyers, that we're not going to court, so we have a bit of extra time to be working on paperwork and getting the paperwork submitted for people. So reach out to me, reach out to other lawyers, your lawyer, if you have one, or go online and get yourself help documents, whatever you need to do, but don't wait to get your paperwork filed. If you need anything, give us a call. We're here for you. Watch this space for updates. And in the meantime, just stay well, shelter in place, and stay well. Take care.